Welcome to Revelland. My name is Esther and I'll be your host today. In this video series, we show you how to be creative, imaginative, inspiring, and transform how you think about your music and gigs forever. Let's transform your live show into an immersive experience that is open to everyone. To make sure this video series is accessible to people with various disabilities, we'll use visual descriptions. I'm joined by Nikki Manuputty, who is a spokesperson for Revelland, and she's going to tell us about herself. So hi Nikki, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. I will describe myself as well. I'm a colored woman in my beginning 30s. I'm wearing a brown jumper and I'm sitting in a wheelchair. I have in my background a lot of plants and books. So I'm basically sitting in my living room.
Great. So Nikki, you are our expert on inclusivity. So I've got a couple of questions for you today. And the first one is, what is cognitive bias and why should bands and musicians be aware of it?
I think one important cognitive bias is that people with disabilities are not participating, or they don't want to participate in, for example, the arts. And if you think about events and music, but that is really a biased thing to say, because if you ask the people who have a disability, like I'm myself, a disabled woman, and we actually really want to participate, but society is not made on it, and you don't see any representation, or sometimes a little bit, but it's not, you don't see much representation in the music scene. And that's where we talk about with Revelland. And yeah, if you don't see the representation, then yeah, the bias thing is going on.
So bands who maybe are neurotypical and are able-bodied, they mightn't consider how a venue runs because of the way they live their lives. And so you're saying maybe they need to consider that when they're planning a gig.
Yes, exactly. Because I think if you're not introduced to people, or you're not working in the field with people who have a disability, or they're not in your company or anything, that's what I meant with representation, then yeah, the venue, you think in an able-bodied way, and you don't even think about it because that's your life and that's how you used to it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of change that can be made in these circumstances.
So before musicians even enter a venue, what should they be considering in terms of inclusion and accessibility? Could you run through a quick checklist for us?
Firstly, before they enter a venue, I would say I will go back to one important thing that I think is really important, that if you want to make your live music more accessible to different target groups, then firstly, it has to come from an intrinsic motivation. So it really has to come from yourself as an artist. Like, I want to involve and not be exclusive, but I want to be inclusive to more people. So first it has to start from there. And if you have that right and find that, and most of the time you find that by talking to people or educate yourself or anything, then if you go to venue wise, if I think of a checklist, first, if you want to play somewhere, check out if it's accessible, for example, for wheelchair users. Do they get the same experiences? Because sometimes it's a venue also says it's accessible, but then in the end, when you come there, for me as example, as a wheelchair user, I experienced that a lot, that you have to go through the back door and that you don't have the same experience, and then the elevator is broken. So check out if what they say on their website, for example, is really true. So call them, check it out. Are they transparent? I think that's really important. And then talk with them as well. How do you think accessibility and inclusion is involved within your venue, and how maybe get their motivation behind it if you want to work with that.
So you're saying that bands should consult with people with different physical abilities, people who think differently, in order to experience the gig from their point of view?
Exactly. That's what I always think. I always have the sentence, nothing about us without us. And I think that one is really important if you want to work on accessibility and inclusion. And and you want to reach more target groups who can experience live music on a same way as other people do, for example, able-bodied, or maybe it's not the same, but actually just in a way that everybody can enjoy it. Then it's really important to
How can artists or creators bring the audience into their worlds without putting obligations or expectations on them or burdening them?
I think artists are a lot of times afraid of making mistakes, and I think actually you should not be afraid, and it's okay to make mistakes, because that's the way how you learn and how you evolve together. And I think then you can actually grow and make it everything trying to be more accessible and also in a creative way, and really be open to learn from each other. So involve the people where you want to work with. For example, if you want to have a target group that you want your show to be accessible for deaf people, have a group of deaf people collected, do an effort and make an effort and collect the people around you, and then get their experiences, and also they can give you feedback. And that's a nice part. That's also how we work, that you have an inclusion board who comes to our shows or immersive live shows, and then they get feedback about it, and then you learn again, and then you can evolve it again. So it's always fluctuating.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Nikki. We really appreciate it. And for anything you've spoken about today and more information, you can go to discoverrevelland.today for the newsletter and for all social media platforms.